Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Mosaic Podcast. This is like the greatest show that I've ever been a part of. Obviously, I'm a little bit slanted because it's my show, but I get to meet people that are just so so beautiful to me. I bumped into this person. I knew nothing about her beforehand. Somehow I saw a video that she did where she was actually in a short coaching session with Simon Sinek, the Start With Why guy. And I was actually surprised that he let her put that up, because he was not the guy that you would think he was. He called her because he was in a pretty down place. COVID had hit him. He was looking for answers, which is beautiful that he reached out to somebody and called him. But what was amazing to me was how hard it was for him to touch an emotion. He couldn't find one. Andrea asked him, "How do you feel?" And he told her how he thought. He didn't really tell her how he felt. And I thought, this is beautiful, because there's so many people. Like, I was so impressed with Simon that he would let that be posted, because he certainly didn't come across in his highest place. But he came across in a really authentic place, which was beautiful. And what it made me see is her patience and just the way she helped him get to a place where he was rationalizing, trying to figure it out, trying to think it through, trying to hide behind his beautiful mind. And she was just like, okay, that's all right. So how do you actually just feel? And can we get there? Today, in this world that we're living in right now, I think one of the real pandemics we're going through is the fact that we don't know how to feel anymore. So much is happening that we've lost touch with what we feel and who we are. And so, for those of you who listen, I'm not big bio people, but I got to tell you a little bit about her. So let me go into the, prepared bio thing, and then we'll jump into the podcast. The woman I have with us today is Andrea Garfield. And she's been building businesses and coaching and teaching leaders her whole career. After getting her MBA, she built and sold companies and volunteered, coaching leaders across the globe. Now, as the founder and CEO of Wholesome Institute, she is passionate about helping people be more human at work. What a beautiful thing to be. Can you imagine that we have to actually have people to help us be more human at work, right? It's amazing, but it's so important. So as I told you, she blew into my awareness with the video of her coaching Simon Sinek through a tough time. We're not going to talk about her website because you know that I don't do that, but I'm going to give you her website now. It's awesomeinstitute.com. I want you to absolutely go there and check everything out that she's doing. You'll see that interview with Simon Sinek. It's right there on the page. When I asked her what was one thing she would say to the world if she knew the world was listening, she said to me, "It's okay to be human at work and in life." So I want to invite you all to meet Andrea Garfield with me and to touch in while we're sitting here. You don't even have to wait even for a word to come out. Touch into yourself and see, how human are you? How much do you allow yourself to feel? That's what we're going to be delving into now, and I can't wait to get started. Andrea, welcome to the Mosaic Podcast. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Me too. I like to come in a sort of weird way, and I start every show out this way, by just asking people, what did your parents do?
That is a great question. My parents were both teachers. My mom was an elementary school teacher and eventually principal, and my dad was a professor of education, so a teacher.
Wow. So did you grow up with this idea of teaching and being taught? Like, what's your perception of teacher now?
Yeah, I definitely did. My parents were always talking about teaching at the dinner table, and there was this real idea that you do something you're passionate about for work and you be of service. and it was never pushed on me, but I really absorbed it because they really felt that and really embodied that in a lot of ways. And definitely made a big impression on me. And I started teaching riding lessons on my pony when I was like 11. And I've been a teacher ever since, one way or another. And, you know, I headed into the business world later on. Everyone thought my sister and I would be teachers, but, you know, here I am as a coach now and as a teacher as well. So I guess we all end up where we're supposed to end up.
I'm going to just jump right in because I know we don't have a lot of time. I want to ask you about this idea of teaching, helping, fixing, changing, you know, all those concepts that come from a vertical reality where we come to the self-help teacher to learn to be better. We go to the coach to try and understand what we're feeling. We go to the teacher to learn a new trade. We go to our government to help us guide us through what it is we should be doing or could be doing, right? And don't even let's not get there. And one of the things, I wrote this book called The Mosaic, which is show sponsored by, and it's a story about a boy who loses his parents 2 years apart on the same day. And when he asks the adults where his parents are, they tell him they're in a place called heaven. So as a little boy, he sets out in search of the place called heaven. And he thinks he's going to find the clergymen and the medicine men and women and the shamans and the priests and the rabbis and all that. That's not what he finds. He finds the road worker and the trash man and the homeless guy and the street artist and the juice man and the waitress and the gardener. And he wonders, what am I sitting with these people for? And when he realizes that he's there, he just says, but I'm here. I might as well listen to them tell me their stories. And in 100% of the cases, when he just listens to their stories, what he realizes, the person he's sitting with now is not at all the person that he first saw when he came up to him. They're entirely different. And he said to himself, gosh, I wonder what I would see if I would get myself out of the way in everything. Like, I wonder what I would see if I would see the world not the way I see it, but the world the way it is. That opened up a whole new story for him, and that's what the book is. That's where the book goes. What I'm interested in is, what it also said to me, though, is there's something beautiful about a horizontal reality where we just hold the space for each other to just come together and be with each other. And in coming together and being with each other, somehow everything that we are not falls off and everything that we are emerges. What do you think about that?
I think there's a lot of truth to that, and a lot of beautiful moments in that. You know, for me in my coaching work, the way I think of it is as walking with someone. And usually, like, I imagine like walking in the forest with someone. Yeah. And I'm not leading them, and I'm not dragging them or shoving them or anything. It's just, I'm just with them. And as we go along and we become curious about ourselves or the world or whatever, we can kind of go down that path, or we can sit and have a picnic for a while, or whatever, you know, occurs to us. And, you know, I love this idea of it not being vertical, and it's not goal oriented, and I'm not that kind of coach. And it becomes such a different experience when it's okay to be you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You don't need fixing. You don't need perfecting. You know, how do you want to grow? How do you want to see the world a little bit differently? Let's explore that.
I love that. And you could see that you did that with Simon. And the little bit that I know of what you do is really the result of that, you know, video that you showed, which was gorgeous, the way you walked with him. The question I have is, do you allow them to walk with you also? So in a horizontal relationship, do you allow the give and take that comes just in the, like when you come together with somebody and you hold them and you hug them, which we haven't been able to do for a long time with COVID, but you just feel the energy exchange. You give energy, you feel energy, you just hold somebody and you just really feel each other. Sometimes in the relationships of verticality, we give, but we don't necessarily receive. Do you find that you have trouble receiving, or are you a good receiver?
I'm a pretty good receiver. Maybe not quite as good as I am at giving, but you know, I think a lot of our philosophy of being human at work means like me too, right? Not just them,
Yeah.
but when I show up and I've had a difficult morning because my daughter's sick or my tech isn't working or whatever, I could pretend like everything's fine, or I could just talk about it. And
Yeah.
I do that with my team. I do that with my clients. Like, I'm a real person. If I make a mistake, I apologize or we try again. I'm not better than them or above them. And it's not that therapist client relationship where everything's very neutral and they can't know anything about me. Like, we're all just people together, and we have to show that, I think, and we have to model that and practice that
Yeah.
together.
And just to say it, everything Andrea's saying happened for us this morning in the green room because she was having right. It was we were having she couldn't quite hear me. I told her if she could bottle it up and sell it, she'd make a fortune because there are millions of people that want to buy something that would keep them from hearing me. So that's my experience of you, and I want to just say that it's true because we don't know each other from Adam. And the fact that you were that vulnerable and real and just said, hey, this is what I'm going through, I love that. I'm sure there are people that are listening right now that are maybe hearing better than you're hearing. that are wondering, how in the heck do I do that? Like I'm so caught in the verticality of my relationships. I either love to give to people or I love to take from people. I find people either give or take. Very few people actually receive in the work that I do because it's hard to receive. It's hard to be vulnerable and just enjoy that. But how do I just create a horizontal relationship where we both don't teach each other, but we just hold each other, and we just, by the sheer nature of us being together, we learn, we grok into each other, so to speak.
I think that for most of our lives, we're taught that we have to be better or different. My daughter's 3, and you're supposed to behave a certain way, and you have to learn this thing, and you have to wear this thing, and eat this thing, and blah, 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 endlessly. Through school, you get into the workplace, this is how you're a professional. This is what you do. That most of us kind of forget that who we are is all we need to be.
Yeah.
And I think the first part of what you're talking about is, how do I reacquaint myself with myself and figure out that I'm actually wonderful and not broken, and what is going on here? We're always outside of ourselves and going forward and striving. And what if I can just be with myself and understand myself better and explore that and be curious and be with someone or someones who feel that way about me and remind me that it's true.
Yeah. So, I'm really interested now because you're doing a lot of work that I feel I do in a different way. Because I do it sort of, I think more in sort of a meditative, spiritual way. But most of the people that I run into have no idea who they are. They've spent so much time modeling themselves after somebody else that they've forgotten who they are. I just wrote a post on Facebook today that said, if you continue practicing being who you're not, you'll never be who you are, right?
Yeah.
What advice do you give to somebody that says, who's caught up in that world where they are completely who they are not? They're following these systems to make money because they're told that if I do the systems the way this guy did it, I'll make money. If I live this way, I'll be okay. And they're so scared to even touch into their own. I'm making an assumption that they're scared, but whatever the reason is, that they just don't touch into who they are, and they live their life for the majority of their life trying to be something other than they are.
Yeah, so advice is not useful in these situations, I've found. What I've found is finding out what they care about, what they're worried about, and having that lead the exploration for what's happening, because they have to discover it for themselves. I can't tell them and have them be like, oh, you're so smart. Why didn't I
Right,
think of
right,
this these last 45 years or something? Um,
right.
if it worked that way, it would be a lot easier. But also not as wonderful and not as impactful, right? We've all heard these things and it's like, yeah, okay. But when you really take the time to discover it for yourself, I have clients and it might be a couple months in. It doesn't happen overnight. And sometimes it happens sooner and sometimes it happens later. And they say, I've realized I don't know myself and I don't know what I care about.
Yeah,
And those are, great moments because we can be like, wow, that's amazing.
yeah,
And what should we do? Right. And we do practices to explore deeper and to find out like where the places are that we can't see in ourselves, um, and how do we kind of go down those paths with some support, and start figuring it out, because when we figure things out for ourselves it never leaves us,
yes, yes,
right? We normally do these 1 year engagements and people are like, oh, that's so long, but it takes a long time to learn to look inside, to look at the things you've never looked at, to start to recognize them in the moment, and then to build a new way of being.
yes,
But
yes,
once you've done it, you never go back. It's not a thing that you like backslide. It's not your New Year's resolution where by February you're back to your old ways, right?
yeah.
Like, so that's really exciting for me. I really love going on that journey with people.
So, one of my big things now is to start a revolution of listening, because I think that in my life, that's been the message that I've gotten, because I talk so much. That I've been, and I looked at God and I said, oh my God, you must be desperate to have me be the person that's bringing you, to bring listening to the world, because are there no better listeners than me? I mean, I suck at this. And the voice that I heard say is that we're not doing it because you're good at it, we're doing it because you need to learn it. But along the way, one of the things that I've sort of heard is that people are scared to death to look at themselves. It isn't, if we all knew that we would look at ourselves and see this beautiful, amazing human being, we would probably look at ourselves more easily. But I don't think that's what people think going in. I think they think they're going to see this demon and this beast that they, in my book, in the Mosaic, I call him the beast. And it's all of that passion, all of those things, all of those desires that we lock up in the basement, and we put padlocks on it and lock the door and close it and sliding locks, and because we don't want that to be seen, and we're scared to look at it ourselves in many cases, and yet no padlock can hold the beast in. The beast will break out eventually. And we're scared to death of that happening because we don't trust that we are good enough ourselves. Does that ring true to you in the work that you do, or is that something like a weirdo that I'm saying over here?
No, I think that's definitely true. I mean, you remarked on my vulnerability, and vulnerability is the most difficult thing for me. I practice really hard
Yeah,
and it's become easier over time. But like, we have to do these things and to face that beast. And I think, I'm maybe a practical spiritualist. I just made that up. But, I'm all about baby steps, and I'm all about normalizing things, right? Instead of, dive into the box and wrestle off the locks and face the beast and on a mountaintop, which totally works for some people. For a
yeah,
lot of people, it's, hey, like, let's just check this out.
yeah.
Let's just poke around a little bit together and see what happens. And this idea of holding these very deep, serious things lightly was eventually pointed out to me in our name, Awesome Institute. We'd be like, awesome, like, which was like a playful making fun of ourselves name. It wasn't even supposed to be the real name of the company. And then Institute is this very serious thing. And I think this approach of dealing with the most meaningful, important things in life in a sort of light way makes it less scary for people.
I love
And
that.
it makes it something that they think that they can actually do, instead of something that is too difficult for them and that's for other people. Like, I can do this too.
I was on a podcast the other day, and the interviewer wasn't necessarily the sharpest tack in the room, but when you listen to people, you find that even Dole Tax asked incredibly insightful questions. And he asked me one of the most beautiful questions I've ever been asked, and I would really like to ask that same question of you. He said, you have this mission to listen. Did you feel like in your life you weren't listened to? Why is it so important for you to feel, to help people listen or to listen to people? Did you not feel listened to? Why is it so important for you? And he was right. My parents passed away 2 years apart on the same day when I was a kid, and it wasn't that I didn't feel listened to, it's just I didn't have my parents there long enough. Why is it so important for you to help people be human? Did you feel that you weren't human?
I don't think I realized that I was trying to act not like a human for a long time, but I think I was. And when I finally realized that I wasn't, my business partner Scott says, we think of ourselves like a brain on a stick. That our bodies and everything are just there to kind of move us around so that we can be smart and think of things and do stuff. And it took a pretty big wake-up call for me to get to the point where I realized, wow, my body is actually there to keep me healthy and to keep me alive. And I have emotions for a reason, and there's spirituality, and there's all these other dimensions of myself. It's not just work, be smart, do the things, be out there in the world. And what I found in my journey, especially as a coach, but even before, is that everyone is feeling this way.
Yeah.
Almost everyone. And as I look back at the history of business, if you want to get big picture here, where I can be is, from the Industrial Revolution, humans took the place of machines. Like humans acted as machines, and that's never really left us.
Yeah.
People say, like, how do we get back to being human at work? But we never were.
Yeah.
We never were. And so people that have come up in business or in any sort of workplace, it's not personal, it's just business.
Yeah.
Leave your personal life at the door and show up and work. Well, we don't do that. We're not machines.
Yeah. And
the pain that causes people, and me too, when I used to do it, you're not even aware of it because it's so normalized, right? That's just the way it is. But when we think about how difficult that is for humans and how painful that is in all these little ways 100 times a day over a lifetime.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, if I can alleviate that a little bit for some people, like, what a life's work to me.
Yeah, beautiful. I remember years ago, like, I always felt like I was too dumb to have different stories for different people. So I just always felt like I should just be myself wherever I am, because then I don't have to make up a story for who I have to be with this person or that person, because I just am not smart enough to remember what I told somebody before. And I think it's probably because I got caught early on trying to do that as a kid, and thinking, oh my God, I don't remember the story. What did I tell you? And I told a different story. But I remember my brother coming up to me and said, Danny, you just can't do business that way. Like, you treat everybody as if they are your friend, and you can't do
Gasp.
That. And I said, why? He said, you're so naive. You're so innocent and naive, and it's charming that you think you can do that, but you just can't do that. And I to this day, I never listened to him because I didn't know how to be other than that. But there's so many people that wear so many masks, that have a closet full of different masks for who they have to be with their wife, who they have to be at their work, who they have to be with their kids, who have to be with their friends, who they have to be, when they're out in the marketplace. And I work with a lot of high-profile people, and they say, well, I can't be who I really am when I am on the stage. And I said, well, why not? And it's just this breakthrough moment for them where they just have to sit. Like, I'm not trying to tell them what to be. I'm just asking why. And listening to the gyrations of what they go through. Why do you think?
So what I found in that situation, because this idea of I could do that is a whole thing.
Yeah.
And then if you can get to the point where you're like, yeah, I want to do that. What I found is that people mostly don't have the skills. How can I be a nice guy and not get run over in business? How can I treat my staff like humans and not go too easy on them or not be taken advantage of. Like this idea that you could be kind and respectful and also have boundaries
Yeah.
and also hold people accountable to agreements.
Yeah.
It's like there's a whole other set of skills that people need to learn because we've been operating in a totally different way our whole lives.
Yeah.
So even just like getting to that point is a huge moment. And then what? Like then there's work to do.
Yeah. And I love this conversation, and thank you so much for engaging in it with me, because I think this is so valuable for people listening. And I want to just invite the listeners to come into the conversation and ask, is that something that you go through? Do you believe that if you're kind, people will run over you? Do you believe that if you treat people too nicely, they will take advantage of you? Do you believe that all those things will happen? What I find is really important, and I'm lobbing this over the net for you, okay, to ask you what you feel on it. We have defined our terms to mean a certain thing that keep us isolated and afraid of being who we actually are. We define kind as always being nice and always being, sometimes the kindest thing you can ever do for a person is tell them what they're doing is wrong. Tell them that what they're doing isn't working. Tell them that, the impact that you're having when you act like that is not the impact that you want. And that's the kindest thing you could ever do. Sometimes hurting somebody in the short term to help them in the long term is the kindest action you could ever give. That's from the Talmud, by the way, from my early rabbinical school days. But we have a definition of kind means sort of this, like, almost Jesus-like view of just let him punch me and turn the other cheek. Jesus didn't let people punch him and turn the other cheek. He did, but he didn't do it like a wimp, right? And so being kind doesn't mean we're a wimp. So do you think it's time that we start to redefine some of the terms that we use to give them real character and give them real truth to it?
Yeah. I think that's definitely true. I think there are a lot of assumptions built in to these ideas of what are probably actually feminine qualities, and where's the power in them.
Yeah.
Right. I think learning that love can be powerful, learning that kindness can be powerful, but it's a different way of being kind, maybe than what you've done before. So how would you know?
Yeah.
It's normal that like you need to relearn some of these things and practice them in a new way. I talk with a lot of my clients about how do you fire someone or let them go in a loving and respectful way. Sometimes that's the best thing you can do for someone.
Yes.
Sometimes it's not what they want, but it's something that needs to happen for the rest of the team. And how do you do it without making people feel shame and making them, feel bad? And a lot of that has to do with how these things make us feel. And we react to our own emotions because we don't know how to sit with them, or they're unfamiliar to us. We haven't practiced. And so we do these things to hold somebody apart. So the firing example is actually a good one. It's really painful for most leaders to fire somebody. Even if they come off like the coldest, hardest person, it's usually pretty painful. And I think that's good, because I think the minute you stop caring about the fact that you have an impact on someone else's life, you should stop being a leader. But that's another topic. Anyways, if I have to fire someone and I'm feeling all of this pain, what I see a lot of people do is push them away and justify all the reasons why they need to get out of here. And maybe they're a bad person or they're a bad employee, because I don't need to feel as bad about it if they're wrong and bad and all of these things. Instead of saying, wow, I feel bad and sad and angry or whatever that I have to fire this person, or that I am choosing to fire this person. And I can feel compassion for them and for myself. I can be loving and respectful to them, and I can hold all of these things at once. And that's why the emotion work that you saw me doing with Simon, and we're doing some other work on that, is so important, because most people don't know they're doing that. They don't know they're reacting to their own emotion in the situation, and it's changing their behavior, it's changing relationships, and it makes it so much worse.
So I'm really interested in this because I believe the stories we tell ourselves create the life that we live. Our thoughts create our words create our stories create our life. if I were to follow the stories that you just said, and this is not a challenge, this is just to get information from you, because I love the way you think, and I would love to understand better the way you think. I just don't agree with what you said around firing somebody, because when you, like, I've been in that position where I've had to hire somebody, where I've had to fire somebody, where I've had to sit down with people that are in relationships that are leaving one another, that they haven't been nice to one another, and we've worked with them through the course of, can you be nice to each other? And it's just like, it doesn't seem like you can be nice to each other. So the kindest thing you could do right now is leave each other right now. The kindest thing you could do for yourself in this company is it doesn't seem like you're happy. So, and I'm not trying to, put something on you to escape me, because the truth is nobody's happy right now around you, because if you're not happy, the environment you're living in is happy, and that's making us unhappy too. And we have to tell you, hey, we love you, but we want you to be happy, and we want to be happy too. And the kindest thing that I think we can do is when we look at the world as we failed this situation, rather than this just wasn't the place. This wasn't our person. This wasn't our soulmate. This wasn't our perfect job. We tried to do it. It might have been 30 years we were trying to do it, but we have no idea who we are as human beings. So we've tried, as somebody who doesn't know themselves, to do something that they don't know how to do, as somebody who doesn't know themselves. And when you can get people to the place where they sit inside themselves and say, what is it that you really want? Is this really what you want? Because none of your actions are showing this is what you want. What would you want if you could do what you want? And how can I help you get there? That's a totally different conversation than feeling bad that I have to let you go. Lob over the net.
Yeah, so I don't think we're disagreeing here. I'm with you on that. But I think the reason that most people can't do what you just described,
yes,
is because of self-blame, anger at the other person, the pain that it feels to part with someone.
Yeah.
Right? We're tribal creatures. Like we're made to be together. And when you throw somebody out of the tribe, it's painful, and that's built into us. And so I think the reason people aren't able to do what you just described is that it's too painful for them and they can't sit with that. So they shift the pain away from themselves and make the other person wrong. I think what you're talking about is exactly what I hope people will do. But that takes a lot of self-awareness, takes a lot of emotional intelligence. It takes practice of understanding I can sit with what's happening for me. Now what's happening for you? And I can be there with you in that. You just described that beautifully.
Thank you. Yeah. And again, it comes back to the fact that when I look around the world, I've been with the richest people in the world and the poorest people in the world. And one of my friends growing up is now a multi-billionaire, and I walked away from $1 billion company to hitchhike around the world because I knew it wasn't going to bring me happiness. And and he was really mad at me. He was so upset with me because he said I was thinking about all the things that we would do together as billionaires to help this world and create and the fun things we would do, and you just walked away from it. And he wouldn't talk to me. 30 years later, I was riding up the elevator at the Mandarin Oriental because the lobby is on the 34th floor in New York. And you have to ride up to the 34th floor to catch the elevator up to your room, which is so you get to the lobby. As I was walking out of the elevator, I couldn't believe it. He was walking in. I hadn't seen him in 30 years. He didn't recognize me. I looked at him and I said, Neil? And he said, how do you know my name? I said, you don't remember me. He said, no, I don't know who you are. I said, this is Danny. I was your best friend. When we were 15 years old, I was your best friend. You remember? He said, oh my God, Danny, what are you doing here? He said, we're going to the club. Come with me. Come with us. I said, let's have breakfast tomorrow. I'm not really a club guy. I'm not going to go to the club. He said, screw the club. I have a bottle of scotch. Will you drink some scotch with me and smoke some cigars? Let's just sit in the lobby here and just have a conversation. We sat from 10:30 at night until 4:30 in the morning. And he said, I want to tell you something. I am so sorry. I used to make fun of you. I used to ridicule you. I used to say you're just spending all your lifetime finding yourself. What a waste of friggin' time. But when I saw your eyes in that elevator, what I wouldn't give to have 1 minute of that, of what I see in you. And I said, but you can have it, Neil. Like, this is not, like, your life isn't over. It's just beginning. And he said, really? Like, how would that happen? I said, I'll fly to you. I'll come with you. I'll be with you. We'll sit together. It won't take that long. You're my friend. I won't even charge you. I don't care. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, let's just sit and give you what you want. And he said, I will call you. That was 10 years ago. I haven't heard from him since. Why do you think people are so scared to really look at themselves?
I think it comes back to what we talked about a little bit ago. When you've been told from the moment you were born that you need to be different, you really believe that. And I think especially when people, well, maybe not especially, but definitely when people find success in this not myself way of being, it reinforces, well, I guess I should keep being like that because it appears to be working.
One of the images I love about the image of a mosaic is that every piece is its own self. But it's not only its own self, it's connected to every other piece of the mosaic. And I believe within that, in that example, is a guideline of how we can live our life. We can be completely ourselves and can be completely connected to everybody else. And I don't think we can be completely connected to everybody else until we are completely ourselves. So it's like the only peace, P-E-A-C-E, we have is when we connect to our peace, P-I-E-C-E. And that each piece then can give peace. Anyway, enough of me talking about my philosophy. Who cares? What's been your biggest surprise in doing the work you're doing?
I'm sorry?
What's been your biggest surprise in doing the work that you're doing?
That's a great question. I think how similar we all are. Yeah. It sounds so obvious, but when I started this work, I originally started working with entrepreneurs, and I had this idea that entrepreneurs were different and special. And then, maybe just leaders, maybe leaders are, and then it's like, well, everybody's the same. Like, everybody has the same pain and the same responses and the same everything. Like, we're all the same. And success, or what we talk about as success, like, none of that matters. And when we can just be together as people and explore these things, it's really amazing.
I love that. Are you old enough to remember overhead projectors?
Yes.
It's one of my favorite images, and the millennials don't have any idea what I'm talking about. But it's one of my favorite images. So imagine for a moment an overhead projector. And put it on, and draw on the first plastic sheet what you just said of how similar we all are. And then put on the second plastic sheet something you said earlier of how we grow up and we're all taught to be different, or told we're different, or whatever that word terminology was that you said. Tell me what the image looks like.
I guess I'm imagining, like a human shape stick figure. That's kind of how I art. And it's almost like it starts in the middle and it moves all around. There's all these different versions of the stick figure, and then at the end it comes back to where it started. And then the line is thicker around that stick figure. And that, with my daughter, I watch her be entirely herself. Yeah. And then I work with people that are probably most commonly in their 40s and 50s, and they've spent an entire life trying to be all of these things. And then in our work together, it's really coming back to themselves. And it's coming, and I'm imagining like she is that pure self at 3, right? And how do we spend our whole lives wandering around just to come back to where we started?
Yeah.
And
Crazy.
how good it feels and how different it feels to ourselves and to everybody else when we start to even catch a glimpse of that again. And the more we can touch back into it and feel that, it's like coming home.
I had an insight a long time ago. I love that. I had an insight a long time ago that we were born and we came in helpless. We came in needing somebody else to take care of us. We couldn't do anything on our own. And then through our growing up, we became independent. And we said we can do everything on our own. We can do it. We can stand up. We can do this, and we don't need anybody. We can do it. And as we get older, we start to become a little bit more helpless again, where we need people to be around us and help take care of us and help us do certain things. And I wonder if that isn't really the image of what you're saying, that we start out sort of innocent, just knowing that we're connected. We need, this whole world's a part of us. But then we lose that when we try and make ourselves be too separate or too different, because we're told we have to be different. And then we come back to being, we need each other again. Any thoughts?
Yeah, when you were describing that, I was actually imagining the opposite a little bit, in that like how much we need children to remind us of our essential nature.
Yeah.
Right? To remind us like this is where we all begin. And I think I used to joke that my daughter was my guru when she was like 1 or 2, because I learned the best lessons about life and humans and myself from her. And technically she doesn't know anything, right? But yet she knows everything about being a human. And I think as we age and we, as you said, like drop all of that, that's really where the wisdom is. And that's really where the real rich human experience is. And I think part of the reason why people have kids is to tap back into that and to experience that wholeness that we miss, that we've often lost touch with.
I wonder if I can reframe what you said just a little, and if it would be accurate or not. Please tell me if it's not. You said, my daughter doesn't know anything, but she knows everything. I wonder if it isn't a little more accurate to say she doesn't know anything, but she feels everything. And in feeling everything, it helps us feel everything. And it's the knowing that sort of gets in the way of the feeling. Please slam it out of the tennis court if it's not what you're saying.
I would say she feels everything and she knows everything. Like she knows the only things that really matter.
Yeah, beautiful.
And everything else is, extra maybe.
I want to wind up, and the question that I always ask closing out is, and you have the beautiful experience of your daughter. So, is this a world you always dreamed you'd give over to your daughter?
Oof. I mean, it's a rough world right now. Yeah. It is not a great world to be handing over to her. And I hope that my work makes it a little bit better. And I hope that she learns some of that legacy of service and following your heart and finding meaningful ways to contribute to the world. And I feel pretty confident that she will.
Yeah, of course.
And I think there's hope for us yet. So
yeah,
I hope she'll be all right.
So I'm a big momentum person, that if we don't change the momentum of the way things are going, things will just keep going that way and speed up and get faster and stronger. Is there something you might recommend to people right now, if this isn't the world you would want to give over to your daughter? Is there something you could recommend, one simple thing, that you might say to people that would help change the momentum of where we're going and move it towards, if I were to ask you in 6 months from now, is this the world you want to give over to your kids? You go, boy, 6 months has really made an impact because people have been doing this. What would that be?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I'm going to bring it back to the self and say, if you can feel a little more, if you can know what you're feeling, if you can tap into that, which is especially hard right now as we're dealing with so many things going on in the world, um, you'll know more of what you need to do, and you'll be able to respond in better ways, and you'll be able to make the contribution that's right for you. I don't believe there's any one contribution, but when people are so overwhelmed right now and we're so disconnected from our hearts because we can't handle any more pain, fear, confusion, everything that's going on, then we feel paralyzed. When we can start to say, okay, I can feel that a little bit, and I can feel that a little bit. Oh, my heart's telling me to contribute in this way, or to create some unity in this way. I think that's what I would recommend.
Andrea, I want to thank you for your time here. I know you're having a program coming up pretty soon called Managing Your Emotions in High Stress Times. And for anybody who is going through some of the things that Andrea just mentioned, you can sign up for that program on Simon Sinek's website, simonsinek.com. I'll have that in the show notes so you can easily see where to go. I want to thank you for being here. I want to invite everybody who's listening to go to awesomeinstitute.com. Start to really look at what's going on there. Start to get to know Andrea. She's a beautiful, beautiful person. You can feel her heart. You can feel how much she wants to just help us to feel again. Like make America feel again wouldn't be a bad saying. And for those of you who listen all the time, thank you so much for coming. If you like this show, there's only one way things spread. People, when you like something, tell it to people that you like. And so if you like it, share it with people that you like. Tell them about it. Tell them about the work that Andrea is doing. Tell them about the show. Share it with them. If you want to, put some stars on Apple Podcast. Write a review of it. That would be phenomenal. But it's time for us all to come together. It's time for us to really sort of get true to what we feel, what we think, what we believe. Let's get to know ourselves a little bit more. In COVID, this time of COVID, when we can't go outside, why not go inside? Why not take the time to go inside and really understand who you are and what you're doing? And I know Andrea has a quick turn off right here, so I want to end. I want to thank you again for coming. I want to thank you guys for listening. And until next podcast, be well, stay connected, stay happy, and just be true to yourself. Get to know your peace, P-I-E-C-E, and your peace, P-E-A-C-E. God bless you. Thank you very much. Ciao.